In this video, I'm going to go through the process of creating a Dwarven Cleric. But instead of using the character creation processes we've used in the past, I'm going to make use of the new character creation wizard. A while back, Smiteworks announced that they were working on a new method of creating characters that was much more user-friendly. And not long after that announcement, they finally released an extension that you could install within Fantasy Grounds Unity just to help them get some community feedback before they push it into the main interface. Well, as of a few weeks ago, at the time of this recording, it is now available within Fantasy Grounds by default, and it is usable directly from the PC selection screen. And on this page, you will now see a blue star, and if you hover over it, you will see Open Character Wizard. So with that in mind, I'm going to make use of this new wizard and actually go through the process of creating a Dwarven Cleric, as I've already stated. So I'm going to close that out and open up the character wizard here. And as we can see, there's already a large selection of options that you have available to you. The list of races will be based on all of the supplemental modules that you have loaded or that has been permitted for you to load by the DM. Same with the class and the backgrounds. Those will be populated with a complete listing of every supplement that you have open. But there is a limitation that I need to point out here, and that is the feats option. If you're not creating a character that is level 4 or higher, you won't be able to make use of this feats feature. Excusing the feats term there. The reason for that is that levels 1 through 3 don't acquire the ability to choose a feat. Additionally, Smiteworks has not, as of the time of this recording, built in the ability to actually take an existing character and level it up through the character wizard, although that is in the process of being worked on, so I understand why that feats option is there. But just so that you, as a viewer, are aware, I will not be covering that particular tab, if you will, during this particular video. All the other tabs that we have here will get displayed today, which is good because we will be going through the process of creating our race, rolling our stats, selecting our class, ensuring that we have a background, and then going through the process of pointing out a few gotchas with the inventory tab that I hope will get worked out at a later point in time, and then go through and select our spells. Before we actually go through the process of creating our character, there's one thing I want to point out here. Until you actually get the option to save the character, nothing you choose is going to show up in your character selection screen, and nothing is going to appear when you exit this window. As you can see, I did not get a character. I did not get an option to choose a character. The reason for that is because I didn't go through enough steps to make sure that a save button appeared here. When I click that save button, and only when I click that save button, does the character get actually created. So this gives you, the player, a plethora of time to go through and look at all of the options associated with each race, each class, each background, so on and so forth, until you get a selection that you're happy with before you actually save anything. Only at that point when you save it does your character get written out into Fantasy Grounds and saved in a usable form. So with all those little things out of the way, let's actually go through the process of creating our character. Now, as I've already stated, I'm going to choose a dwarf. And earlier today, when I was going through the process, I decided I was going to make sure I selected the hill dwarf, and I'm going to choose the Mason's Tool. Now, what you see up here is that there is now a green checkbox in the race tab. That means that I've completed all of the selections that I need to do to really move on to the next step. Additionally, most of your selections here are already summarized. So all of your proficiencies that are available to you at this particular stage in the process are now listed here. I haven't chosen a class yet. I don't have a specialization yet. The speed of my character, the senses to this character, and the size of this particular character are all listed, as is the race. In addition to that, if there's any specific traits associated with that race, they now appear here. And any languages that you are given by default are also selected. If there's any additional skills at this point, which I don't know of any races that actually do provide it, but there might be a few, they'll pop up in this particular location. But typically you don't start getting skills until you start looking at backgrounds and classes. In addition to that, we have no name yet. That is something here that we can choose. I also have no background yet because we haven't gotten to the background tab. In addition to that, this is the default set of stats selected through the standard array option. If anyone has actually gone through the process of playing the pen and paper variant of Dungeons & Dragons and not gone through an automated system like Fantasy Grounds or any of the other utilities that are out there, you may not be aware that there are actually multiple ways to go through and roll your stats. And that's what we'll do next. So when I click this next button here, it automatically takes me to the next tab. In this case, that is the Stats tab. Now you may have noticed earlier there was already a green checkmark here. Well, that's simply because there's already a value selected by default, and the default option for your stats is through the standard array. If you don't like the order of those stats, you can literally just click on the left and the right arrow, and it will shift it over to the window that you want. It'll literally move it over to the next window here. So this 12, for example, will pop over to the Wisdom. If I move it again, it'll pop over to Charisma, and then I can move back and forth. So that is the standard array method. But selecting this gives you manual entry, or the point buy option, or the dice roll. Now, for any player who goes through my campaign, I actually like to choose the dice roll option because it gives a lot more variety. You have a chance to get some really low stats, you have some chances to get some really high stats, or a really good mix. In some cases, I've had players that have had a large number of stats over 14, more than, I would say, 60% of the stats. Other characters have had 60% of their stats where they've been under 9. And they've chosen to play those characters. So you get a bit of a variety with that. Now, I haven't selected this because what's going to happen is the minute I select this dice roll, it's automatically going to roll the dice. If you remember in my earlier series, I went through the process of showing you how to create a quick die option, or macro, if you will, that would go through, roll 46, and drop the lowest dice. Guess what? Fantasy Grounds has one-upped us on that. It will now roll all of the stats and automatically drop the lowest value. Not the greatest of stats. And if you have a dungeon master like me, who says you have to take that, you don't really get the option to click this reroll button. But for the demonstration of this particular video, I'm going to reroll that. And you'll see what will happen is that the numbers will actually clear out and pop back in. Now that is very average. That is a very average character. I'm not a fan of average characters in the case of this particular video. Oh my. There's a case of a 4. So I'm actually getting a 50-50 split here. I've got some decent numbers and then some really bad ones. And you can just keep clicking a reroll until you get a value that you're happy with. And just 1 second. I will come back once I have got a selection Actually, that's not bad. Okay. Now, one thing that I want to point out is that the racial adjustment is already here. You don't have to add it. It's already taken into account. So if you look at these numbers here and then look over on this screen here, you'll see that our wisdom is already being increased by 1 point. Our constitution is already being increased by 2 points. All you as a player have to do is make sure that these stats are in the spots that you want them to be, or if you're following the guidelines of the class, where they should be. So, typically, a character's primary stats are listed as an approximation of their saving throws. So, wisdom is essentially a priority ability for the cleric because they're going to be casting clerical spells. And the massively large number of those spells are dependent on the character's wisdom. Charisma can also come into play because typically if you're playing a cleric, you're supposed to be charismatic with the people that you're dealing with. At least that's the general quote-unquote concept of it. But that doesn't always necessarily mean that that is a set-in-stone value. A dwarf, for example, is charismatic or can be charismatic if I choose to leave that 15 there in this particular case. But what happens if I decide to move that 10 over? Well, it's going to be a little bit more gruff. Maybe have a little bit more of an attitude when dealing with people, things like that. Those are the kinds of things that you as the player get to choose. But generally, you'll at least want to follow the selection of your primary stat, if you will. Additionally, if you look at the quick build options, they will tell you first wisdom should be your highest ability score, followed by strength or constitution. So strength and constitution do come into play because as a cleric, you're also going to be on the front lines. You're going to be up in the fray if you're taking a melee weapon and not using any ranged and not focusing on strictly ranged spells, such as some of the War Domain spells. But if you're taking Life Domain, you need to get up and close to the people you're trying to keep alive. That means you're putting yourself at risk, which means you need to have a decent enough strength or constitution to be able to defend yourself if you're getting into melee combat, or have a high hit point count to be able to survive any hits that you might end up taking in the process. So with this particular character, I'm actually going to go through the process of ensuring that Wisdom is my highest stat, which in this case is the 17. Well, all I really need to do is continue to select that move right option until I get the 17 into the selection I want. It will literally move all the other values to the left in order to make room for that 17. Now, Charisma, I'm going to keep that at a 15. Strength and Constitutions. Constitution's getting a +2 bonus, which means it's putting it at a 17. So I'm going to move this 16 over to my Strength. Dexterity. Oops, let's push you to there. And anyone play that little towers game? Move the least number of buttons to get to the tower rebuilt kind of thing? That's sort of what's going on here. And then move that there, and that'll do. Okay. So that is the selection I'm going to choose for this particular character. And with that, I am now ready to move on to the class selection. Well, we know we're going to build a cleric. So once again, I've clicked this next button, and that has allowed me to go through and select the available classes. And I should state that the list of classes, the list of races, and the list of backgrounds will be a complete list made available by all of the supplements that you as the player have loaded. That's also going to be dictated by what the DM has chosen to allow you as the player to load. Some DMs won't necessarily allow you to choose from Mordecai's or Volo's guide for some of the races. Some do. It depends on the world that they're putting their characters into or putting their campaign into. In the case of my preferred world, which is Forgotten Realms, I will probably allow that large selection to be available. It really depends on the day. All right, so I'm going to choose Cleric. I'm going to leave it at level 1 because that will allow me to set up for going over some of the subclasses or specializations, if you will. Now, skill proficiency is one of those tricky options that you want to be careful on. And the reason why I say that is because your background is going to give you some of your skill proficiencies. So what you're going to want to do is to make sure that you kind of have an idea as to what you as a player are going to be choosing for your background before you go through the process of actually creating this particular character, in order to essentially to allow you to min-max the actual character selection. So in this case, I'm going to be getting Insight and Religion, which Insight and Religion are these two here. So I don't want to select those as skills, otherwise I end up essentially having a doubled up religion or a doubled up insight if I decide to choose that. So I'm going to choose medicine and history in this particular case. What else? Next, in relation to a character, and a cleric, I should say, and this is really only specific to a cleric, is that you're going to be choosing your quote-unquote domain. And what that means is that your domain is going to be tied to a particular deity, however you want to pronounce that. Generally, though, you'll want to make sure that you choose a domain that is going to work with or be compatible with the god or deity that you are going to choose for your character's religious component, if you will, if you decide to go that route. And not all players do. Some players don't. For cleric, it's kind of important, though, because that deity is going to be the one providing your character the spells when you pray to cast a healing spell, for example, if you choose Life Domain. Kind of hard to explain how that's happening if you haven't selected a god for your particular character. You can get away with it, but in general, you want to make sure you choose one. In this case, I'm going to choose the Life Domain. And the reason I'm doing that is the Healing Cleric is probably one of the most ubiquitous characters out there. Not necessarily the race I've chosen, but the class is. And the reason I say that is because a Healing Cleric generally is the only character within the party that could potentially allow that party to continue to move forward because they're keeping the characters alive. You can get through some pretty tough campaigns without a cleric, don't get me wrong, and I'm not saying you can't do it. But generally, you want to have some healing character there with you, whether it's a cleric, whether it's a druid, maybe even a paladin, those kinds of things. This video, however, is all about the cleric, not any of those other classes. So I'm choosing. This is why you want to make sure that you go through the process of creating that character to the way that you want to do it, but at the same time fulfilling a role that you're going to be playing within that party that you have decided to play. There is, however, one other thing that I would like to point out on this particular screen. Some of you might have noticed this multi-class selection screen. Well, you can go through the process of selecting this if your total character level is going to be 2 or higher. With Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, you can't multi-class until you have actually hit level 2 or higher. So you can choose level 1 cleric, go through that particular process, and when you get to level 2, you can choose not to level your clerical class up, but instead decide to choose another class. So this particular multi-class option really is only here if your total character level is going to be 2 or higher, and you want to multi-class. So for the time being, I recommend just, if you're not going to be multi-classing with a level 1 character, which kind of is hard to do, don't select it. With that in mind, I can now move on to the background. And the background, again, is going to be a complete listing of all of the backgrounds that are going to be available through all of the supplements you have loaded. If you're missing a background, it might be because you haven't actually gone through and loaded the modules. So for example, I don't have Mordecai's loaded. If I go through the process of loading that, it doesn't necessarily immediately drop anything into here, but there's also no backgrounds available within that particular category. However, there are, maybe it wasn't the classes. Is it the, sorry, it's the class. There are some subclasses, if you will, that come through the classes option through Mordecai's, and there I do believe there are some races. So I don't believe the races refresh unless you close out and reopen the screen. And at this point, if you're this far into it, if you close out and reopen your screen, you're going through the process of redoing everything, including your stat rolls. Because it doesn't save that until you have the option to actually go through the process and save it. So having done that, I'm going to unload Mordecai's just so I don't put the system into a state of crashing. And back to backgrounds. In relation to a cleric, there are a couple of options that you can choose. You could go with the soldier option, noble knight. Outlander to a certain point is more druidic in nature as opposed to clerical in nature, in my opinion. Generally, though, most people are going to choose the acolyte one, and the reason for that is because of the options that it provides. And that's the one that I've already actually selected that I'm going to do. And the reason for that is that you already get some of the things here specific to the clerical role through the acolyte background, as opposed to having to go and buy them later on, kind of thing. When you choose the background, you are also going to potentially have additional language choices. And now a dwarf, I already know common and dwarvish. This is a hill dwarf, so there is a chance that they could have learned orc through dealing with orcs, whether it's through combat or whatever. They wouldn't necessarily know undercommon totally. I mean, I could be convinced that they could, but chances are they're going to know orc and goblin. Excuse me. Just simply because of the fact that that's probably what they're going to run into far more frequently than in relation to the hills and the language options that were there. Potentially a giant. I could see a giant too. Okay, now you'll see here that we now have a save option. At this point, I could go through and save this particular character. It would create it and drop it into here as a selection, as well as load it here. Now, one thing to note, if a character is loaded here, it will not be within the selection screen. So you'll see it briefly here, and then it will pop into here. When you log in next time, it will be here in your character selection screen, and it will be owned by your particular account. on that particular Dungeon Master server. But we're not done yet. I want to show you some of the things around the inventory and spell selection. For now, I'm going to skip past inventory and jump right to spell. And the reason for that, let's go right to spell, which, by the way, doesn't work through the next options here. The reason for that is I want to show you how the spells actually work. First off, cantrips and all your various levels are going to be restricted to the clerical listing of spells. Whatever class you decide to choose, and it happens to be a spellcasting class, the list of spells that you will see here will be restricted to that list and only that list. In relation to a cleric, there aren't that many cantrips that we can make use of, but a good one to always take is Sacred Flame, even if you're in a life domain. Oh, that is the other thing, is that all the options that are listed here are restricted to the domain you have chosen. So I'm going to choose Sacred Flame. Now, all I did was click on that. It didn't do anything. It didn't drop anything. But you'll see here it says drop spells here. So I can either take this and drop it into place, or apparently not, but I can do that here. It's strange too, because from the inventory perspective, I can do that. So that's unexpected behavior in my opinion. That might be an issue. I'm going to choose Guidance and Resistance. And the reason is that a life domain character, their job is to try to make sure that their party stays alive as long as possible. And these 3 cantrips complement that as much as possible. But at the same time, I also get 1 level 1 spell. And it says there are spells available. Alright, so I'm going to select Cast Cure Wounds. And you'll see here that general clerical spells will be listed, as well as your life domain. And if I'd selected War Domain, I would only see War Domain specific spells. But there are a large number of spells that are just generic clerical spells. So they will also still be listed here. But you can't choose a War Domain spell from this list, simply because it's not going to give you that option. So that's the thing that I wanted to point out in relation to the actual spells. Now, in reference to the inventory, you might notice here that there really isn't an option to give a total gold quantity that you have available to you. I don't know why that's the case, but it doesn't seem to go that route. You still need to refer to your class and your background sheets in order to determine what equipment your character is actually going to be starting with. Now, you can choose to go through and actually do this here, or you can choose save after you've given the name. So, the Cleric. I could choose to save it and then go add this stuff after the fact and top things up like we have done in previous videos. But I want to use this new inventory system because I think there's some room for improvement here. One, it's not filtered. It isn't restricting the options here based on the class and the background that you have chosen. And I personally feel that that actually is something that can be done. Now, it could be argued that this selection is literally just showing everything because no one can actually predict what you're going to take. Well, if that's the case, then you choose what you're restricted here and then you go back and add stuff later. But to simplify, get in the clarity of what you can choose as a character, I really believe they should filter this particular list. Now, you can search and filter it here. Yes, fine. But I think it should already be pre-filtered. And then if you don't want it filtered, maybe just have an option to unfilter here, and it would just populate with everything. That's just my opinion. Potential room for improvement. Now, I admit I didn't comment during the review process, but that's fine. All right, so what I want to do is I want to go through my class sheet here and look through all of my starting equipment. And that is going to be in this list here. So with that in mind, I'm going to choose Warhammer because my character is capable of using a Warhammer. So I'm going to go to Weapons, search, type in War, and you have to hit Enter in order for the filter to work. And then I'm just going to drag and drop that over. Oh, well, that's now going to cost me 1 platinum piece and 5 silver pieces to buy it. Oops, my character doesn't have that money. Well, guess what? You don't have to worry about it. It doesn't come off your character. So just go through the process and selecting all of your equipment. So scale mail, select armor, scale. There we go. Go back to weapons, and I want a crossbow. It is the light one. Drop that into place. And the one thing I do like about this, the filter by option, is it sticks with the tab, meaning that it sticks when you select the different tab. So that makes it very easy to admittedly go through and select things, because I need a light crossbow and bolts, because I've decided to go this route, not with any simple weapon option. I'm also going to go with the Explorer's Pack. And the reason I'm doing that is that this is going to give me things that I don't necessarily get out of the Priest Pack. I'm going to get them here. So if I select the Priest Pack, I'm going to get the Holy Symbol, I'm going to get the Vestments, I'm going to get Incense, those kinds of things. But I'm only going to get 2 days worth of rations. I don't like that. An Explorer's Pack is actually going to give me a lot more. So I'm going to search for Pack. Now the backpack you're going to get through your Explorer's Pack. So I'm just going to take this and drag and drop this down into here. Now, anyone who's looked at any of my previous videos is already going to know that, wait a minute, it didn't expand out. Well, that is correct. That's because we haven't yet created our character. We still haven't hit that save button to actually create the character sheet. The Fantasy Grounds is smart enough to know that I am loading the Explorer's Pack into my particular character at the time of creation, and it's going to explode that, if you will, and expand that out to all of the items that are listed within it. If, however, you're still curious as to what it comes with, you can choose to read through its description. You can always choose these icons here and read through the description. And same thing here, you can click on the icon here and pop it open. So you're not necessarily restricted to that. I'm also going to choose a shield. Now this is the one thing where there's a bit of duplication, because I'm going to get a shield and a holy symbol. Well, I'm getting a holy symbol here. Oops. Oh well. Can never have too many holy symbols. Alright, so I want a shield. ILD. That is under armor. Drop that into place. And now, one thing I will point out, if you search for holy, all you're going to get is holy water. The reason for that is because the holy symbol can be multiple things. And if you look under the adventuring gear link here and scroll down, you'll see that holy symbol is actually a category. It can be an amulet, emblem, or reliquary. So if I look for amulet, there it is. Okay, but I'm also getting a holy symbol for here. So this might be another gift. Well, maybe I'll choose an emblem to go along with that, and the off chance that I lose my amulet. So I'm going to drop that into place. So technically, this character has 2 holy symbols. That's fine. I don't mind that. All right. We are done with the class when it comes to the equipment. So, holy symbol, prayer book. Well, there is no prayer book per se, but you can easily just drag a book down and rename it. Prayer wheel, however, is a little bit more difficult. In that case, I actually recommend you create the character before you go and try to add the prayer wheel to it, because it's going to be a custom item. And I honestly don't know how large a prayer wheel is, so I don't know what its weight would be and all that jazz. Probably something that should be added into the items list, but nobody has. The other thing that I will point out here, and there's a reason why I have chosen this particular character, is you get a block of incense, and there's no other option here. You don't get sticks of incense. Not sure why. So in the case of the incense, I'm going to add that after I've gone through and created the character. So vestments. So there are clothes, and clothes does have the vestments option here. So I'm just going to drag that down, and you'll see that it adds it. But at the same time, I also get a set of common clothes. Okay, so I'm going to drag that down. So you get 2 sets of clothes when you choose this. And there's also a belt pouch. Wait, that's not under boat. or belt, it's under pouch. And you will get 15 gold pieces. You will have to add that gold pieces after the character is created. Now, the one thing that I like to do is when you're dealing with bows, crossbows, slingshots, or anything along those particular lines, you still need a container to store the bolts or the arrows or anything like that. Well, bolts are still technically stored in a quiver. So, in my opinion, what I like to do is make sure that the player has a quiver, just to make sure that they're storing the bolts in that quiver. Arrows typically go in a quiver. Slingshot, stones don't necessarily. They just go in a bag, typically on the pouch or in some other form that's quick access to them, maybe in your pocket, that kind of thing. But I like to make sure that bolts and arrows are in a quiver. Just simplifies the organization of it, and that's literally my OCD that comes into play there. All right, at this point, I'm done. And as I've stated earlier, the feats page here is literally just going to be empty because there's nothing we can do. So we don't even have to worry about that. With that in mind, I am now going to save this particular character. And when you click that button, it will pop open your character sheet, as well as make sure that your character's up here. And you'll see that your character selection screen is actually empty. That's because you've already got your character loaded. If you release this character and then open up the character selection screen again, it will appear there. So it essentially, if you had gone through the process of reconnecting to your Dungeon Master server, say the following week after you'd gone through and created your character, that's essentially what happened here. Now there's one last thing that we need to do, and that is update the inventory. And as you can see here, we don't have an Explorer's Pack. We actually have a bedroll, we have a backpack, we have a mess kit, a pouch, or sorry, rations, 10 of them. All of those things were inside of the Explorer's Pack. So it has definitely exploded the contents of that Explorer's Pack into our inventory. That allows us to go back and organize this if we choose to. But the one thing that I need to do here, and I always do this, oops, and then just make sure that the 15 gold that I was supposed to have is here. You'll notice that I'm not negative in any money or anything along those particular lines. That's because the previous screen, yeah, it might show you what the total is, but it doesn't take anything away from your character. You don't have like a negative 26 platinum pieces here or whatever our total was. Okay, so the next bit, and we don't need either of these here at the moment, is to look at a portrait. And you want to make sure that you have a portrait before you have a token. Portraits can be selected and loaded locally. And once you've chosen that portrait, it will be uploaded to the Dungeon Master server, as I understand it, and made available. I don't know if it just gets uploaded in a cached way, or if it's actually uploaded so that the next time you log in, it pulls it back down from the player server, or whether it loads locally. But it's there so that other characters can see your particular portrait. In any event. Now, I'm running both my player system and my Dungeon Master screen on the same system. So I actually have access to all of my, I don't want Drugar, I want Dwarf, portraits that are already installed. It's reading from the same directory. Kind of a minor problem, but that's okay. The other thing I will point out is that in relation to gender, that hasn't been set. The age hasn't been set. And the reason for that is this is typically the customization that you as the player can add to your character. The personality traits, the bonds, the flaws, etc., are not here. All of those are things that you can go through the process of creating on your own. You can use the ones provided by 5th edition, or you can put in your own ideals or your own bonds. You don't have to stick with the ones that are available within Dungeons & Dragons. You can choose them on your own. The alignment and the deity, these are kind of supposed to be aligned with your domain that you have chosen in this particular case. But really, you can put whatever you want to in there. I don't think there's any restriction that comes into play. Okay, so portrait. I am going to decide on a male cleric. Now, some are generic, some are actually clerical. I'm wondering, is there any cleric option here? No. Now let's use this guy. Oh, that's a wizard. Oops. Didn't see that till after I had clicked. Dwarf. There we go. That's just the male, the non-wizard one. That's kind of clerical. Now, tokens, they don't necessarily appear here. You'll see that our tokens folder is empty. And that's because tokens come from the Dungeon Master. It's a shame because it would be really nice if those tokens could be shared across. But what'll happen is the easiest way for a token to be assigned to your particular character is to allow the Dungeon Master to go through and present to you a picture of the available tokens that they have specific to the type of character you're creating. Once they've done that, you just simply tell them which one you want to choose, and they will add that token to your screen. So I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to choose, now I'm doing this on the Dungeon Master screen, which I'm unfortunately not recording right now. So I'm going to go with this guy for now. And you'll see that our token has changed, despite the fact that nothing has been here. It's made available there, I should say. Now, we're also not quite done. There are still a couple of things that you want to do. One of them is to go through and fill this information in. If you want to use the options that are available within 5th edition and Dungeons & Dragons specifically for your ideals, bonds, flaws, then what you want to do is go to the background that you have chosen, and you can either go to the backgrounds button here and then search out the background you've selected, which to be honest, it's the Acolyte one, so it's just right up here, or you just go to your main page and just click this. Down at the bottom of that will be a series of tables. And I'm just going to open this up, and what you can do is click on Acolyte Personality Traits and choose a role. And the content of that trait will pop up in the actual chat screen. Common ground, fiercest enemies, but always working toward peace. Not something I see my character doing, or this particular character doing, but it is an option. Okay, this one. So, I've decided to choose this particular personality trait. Well, I don't have to really do anything except drag it. So I'm holding down the left mouse button after clicking on it over top of this text, and I'm just going to drop it into place. I don't have to even type anything in. That's how easy it is. So that is that. Let's go with the ideals. Okay, yeah. Sort of along the lines of where I'm aiming for this particular character to go. And I seek to preserve the sacred text that my enemies consider heretical or seek to destroy. Okay, that sounds realistic. And the flaw. I'm inflexible in my way of thinking. Well, that would definitely link with these two bonds. And ideals. Kind of contradictory in the ideals, I suppose. But it definitely applies to the bond. And that's it. That's all you have to do. Now, deities, they are available within the player's handbook. And what you want to do is click on it and open up the reference manual as opposed to the individual sheets. And look for gods. When you do that, you'll see that Appendix B pops up as a selectable option here, and that is going to take you to the page that lists all of the deities that are available in the world that you are actually going through and playing in. So there's Greyhawk here, there's Forgotten Realms, there's the Dragonlance ones. Is there anyone? Eberron is here. And anyone else? No, you can actually go through and create your own. So they create your own. So they've got like Greek pantheon, Egyptian pantheon, pretty much everything. But in the case of this particular character, what you want to look at is the suggested domains field. So you're looking for life. Well, there's Shantia, Eldath, and they will show you the alignment of that particular deity. So neutral good, Helm, god of protection, lawful neutral. Ilmater, god of endurance, that's lawful good. Lathander, that's typically an elven god, but not always. Lyra, not sure if I pronounced that one right or not. So you'll want to make sure that you choose one that is in a line with a domain that is applicable to your choice of god. I'm looking specifically for the dwarvish ones. So is there... no, there is a non-human deity here, so... Dragon's profile. Okay, so life, dragon god. Lizard folk. Halfling goddess. So I'm going to go with... Is Doomethorn up here? No. But doesn't matter. In this case, I'm going to go with Helm. And I will choose lawful neutral in this particular case to align with that. So let's spell that out. Yeah. I have not been able to type all day today. Now, in order to populate this stuff here, you'll want to go to your racial page. So in this case, that would be the dwarf. And in some cases, you'll even want to go to the subrace. And the reason why I say that is sometimes the subrace will change the height and the weight allotment, as well as the age. Okay, so age restriction. They live about 350 years on average. So that means they could potentially go longer than 350 years. I am going to choose 125. Height. That's under size. Dwarves stand about 4 and 5 feet tall on average. So I'm going to put 4 feet 8 inches. And average about 150 pounds. And because he's a priest, and I apologize to any priest that might be watching this, I'm going to put him at maybe 175 pounds. A little on the portly side. Likes his food and beer. Or ale. And the gender, male or female. I've already chosen a male icon there, so I'm going to choose male here. Okay, and then the appearance, that is something that you can role play through. So you can describe what you picture your character to look like so that when you bump into another player and they ask, well, what does your character look like? What am I seeing? You can read through that particular description and explain to them exactly what your character looks like or what you envision that character looks like. It can be highly, highly detailed, or it can just be as simple as you see a gruff dwarf with scraggly hair and grayish blue eyes and a very cantankerous face. That kind of thing. You can go through the process of making it as detailed as you want. There's no restriction to the content in there except maybe a text limitation, but I actually don't know what that is. And the notes, this is for you to remind yourself of things. So you can create notes in this particular section that you need to remind yourself later on about. But there's also a notes option that doesn't show up when you're creating characters. So that is also something that you can make use of. Now, there is one last thing that we need to do, and that is to make sure that our abilities have been set up. None of the racial or class-specific abilities have been added to this particular page. And if anyone has looked at my previous videos, you will know that I go through that particular process to make sure that things that need to be there should be there. So I'm going to quickly, let's see, Shelter the Faithful, Divine Domain, Disciple of Life, and just go through and open these up Aha! So you do gain the ability for heavy armor. I didn't notice whether it selected that or not. Abilities. It did not add it. That might be something that Smiteworks... Can you take a look at that, please? So I'm going to add heavy armor to the proficiency bonus there. All right. So that should have been something we could have chosen or known about rather earlier. And being able and having the ability to do that would have given us the ability to choose the chainmail that was in the option. So because of that, I would actually allow a player to go through and make a swap if they wanted to, with no cost to them. All right, and let's go Dwarven Resiliency, Dwarven Toughness, and Stonecunning. So what you want to do is you want to pop all of these things that potentially have the ability to be actionable or something linkable in the sense of, I just noticed that, why is that field there? That's empty. Okay. That could potentially be useful in a reference or as an action. So Stonecunning is a trait, but I don't believe... Why is this giving me information about the dwarf? Interesting. I want Stonecunning. That's what I was expecting to get. In fact, all of the racial traits are the dwarf class sheet or race sheet. Oops. Not sure why that's the case, so there might be a few bugs that still exist with this. So let's open up resistance, Dwarven resilience rather. And actually it looks like it created everything incorrectly. Okay. Dwarven combat training, tool proficiency. So there's a couple of resilience and where's the subrace? Because I'm pretty certain Hill Dwarf gave us Dwarven toughness. Yeah. Okay. So, slight bug with the character wizard sheet. I will go through and make sure that I report that to Smiteworks as a bug, just in case somebody else hasn't. All right. Let's see. You have advantage on saving throws against poison, and you have resistance against poison damage. All right. So this is something that you will want to make an actionable option here. So it will fall under powers because it's not a spell and it's not a weapon or a cantrip. But at the same time, this is a dwarven racial trait. So dwarf. There we go. And what I will do here is in relation to this is you grant an advantage on saving throws against poison. So you're going to want to create an ability, and I'm doing that by right-clicking on this line here. So wherever it says Dwarven Resilience, you right-click, select Add Action, and go to Effect. And I believe it is disadvantage save or advantage save. So you want to edit this by clicking that magnifying glass that's here. And you want to put in ADV and I believe poison might work. Poison. Wow, I can't type anything today. It'll be self, and you want it on next action. So let me just check to see if that's even possible to do. Well, there's definitely a poisoned category. Yes, so you can choose that. Or is that? So there is a correction here that I have to make, and the reason being is poison is not necessarily going to be generic in this particular case. When you do an ADV save, you need to actually refer to an ability or concentration as the option. So you could choose strength, dexterity, wisdom, intelligence, charisma, essentially your main stats here. Constitution, that's the one I missed. In most cases, poison is going to be a constitution. So what you want to do here is just literally put in constitution. So constitution. Provided I spelled that right. Nope. I did not. So cut and paste for the win. There we go. Now, you can also create additional effects. So if there is a poison that affects wisdom or your strength, you can go through the process of adding an advantage to save for each of these conditions and allow that to protect your character. So let's go back to the actions tab here. So what I mean by that is you could actually go through, add another effect, and go say add save, and let's say it affects your dexterity. Dexterity, if I can spell it. And what this would do is, if the poison affects your dexterity, it requires a save against dexterity, you can make a dexterity roll with advantage because you're gaining advantage on poison. You're not gaining on advantage on whatever. Sorry, you are gaining advantage on whatever that poison affects, in my opinion. So if someone has chosen a poison that requires your dexterity save, he makes that. If someone has chosen a poison that requires a constitution check, you make it with that. So that's what I would personally believe here is a viable option. But I'm going to delete this for now. In addition to that, you get resistance against poison damage, and that is always going to be there. So that is going to be another effect. It's going to be a modification. Resist poison. And this one does require poison as the thing, and it never expires. It'll always be there because you're always resistant to poison, plain and simple. So not only do you get advantage on the saving throw, you're resistant to it. You're not going to necessarily take 0 damage, but you're definitely resistant to the effects of it. Okay, so that takes care of Dwarven Resilience. Your maximum hit point increases by 1, and it increases by 1 every time you gain a level. So for Dwarven Toughness, what this means is that I just thought of an easy way to do this. Bing. Rather than modify your maximum hit points here, I recommend you create a new power. And why did that not pop up when I dragged it into place? Where did you go? Really? Uh-huh. Sometimes I hate this. I'm not entirely certain. It might already be encoded into modifying your hit points. I'll have to check to make sure that's actually not the case. But if it isn't, it wouldn't be an action so much as an effect that we'd be looking to create. Let me just see if I can. So if it's not going to let me add it here, then I don't know if there's... Really? Where'd all my spells go? Well, I haven't prepared any. Duh. So, you're prepared. Fine. Really? Yeah, no, it's not going to let me add it. All right, that's fine. It might already come into play. Disciple of Life. Strength on hand spells are more effective whenever you say. So any healing spell that you cast gains a 2 plus the spell's level. So what that means is if I were to cast Cure Light Wounds right now, what is it doing? Something is modifying this already. So, Cure Light Wounds, is it already 1d4? Plus your spellcasting ability modifier. So, your spellcasting ability modifier is Wisdom for this particular character, and our Wisdom has a +4 bonus. So that is already in place. But, why did that? There's definitely some issues going on with Fantasy Grounds of late. That's not what I want. There we go. Plus, so 2 plus the spell's level. Little trick here for you. So, I'm going to add one ability here. I'm not going to be adding any dice. So 2 plus the ability's spell level. So that would be 3 in this particular case. And this would be a hard-coded number. Okay, so let me do a quick test. Oops. Get rid of the Arcane Trickster. Not required. Throw the Cleric in there. Let's just, for kicks, throw 20 hit points of damage on that Goblin boss. Now, you're not going to be able to see the hit points that are selected there. But let's say, as the Cleric, I am going to target and make sure that you're active. I'm going to target the Goblin boss. And I'm going to cast Heal. You'll see that it added +7. And the reason being is that this is cumulative. So in the case of Cure Light Wounds, they're gaining an additional 2 hit points plus the spell's level. So that would be a 3. Now, I could have just added the bonus here, but I wanted to show you that you could actually create a stacked list of healing here. The other way to do this is to simply add another effect, if you will. So you could create, let me just delete that item. You can create another healing effect here. So this would be a heal. But instead of actually putting anything here, you could literally just say +3 to take into account that bonus. So what you would then do is hit this heal to get the randomness to it, and then automatically hit that as the additional hit points that they're going to gain. That would also work, and that would also be a little bit clearer as to what you're doing there. So that is something that could come into play. The other option is you could create a Disciple of Life action itself, and then create a series of bonuses based on different levels that you've chosen. So let's say you took a 5th level spell. I think there's a, let's go to Cleric. Yeah, let's go to 3rd level, and let's go to Cleric. Actually, the Cleric Life Domain. Is it 4th level? Not 2nd level. Our Cleric itself. All right, 0 everything out. Okay, so this spell is on level 6. So your bonus would be 2 plus level 6. So you could create a series of effects, if you will, that would be linked directly to Disciple of Life that you could then just click on based on that particular level of the spell that you just cast. It's easy to forget that way, so I generally recommend simply modifying this particular line here. That way it's done. you don't need to worry about it because the value is going to be cumulative. But this also works, so I'm going to leave this for like this for now. So Shelter of the Fateful is a role-playing one, so you don't need to go through and create an actionable item there. I do recommend that you still link that feature to this particular thing here, and this is going to be an Acolyte feature. Acolyte. I think that's right. That way you can role-play it out and click on that to show that you're going to use it for the Dungeon Master, and then if they ask for details of it, just simply drag it into place. Alright, in relation to Stonecunning, this particular character already has proficiency in the history ability. But when you take a look at stonework, for example, you're considered proficient in the history skill and add double your proficiency bonus instead of just your normal proficiency bonus. So when you're looking at, let's say, studying the quality of the stone within a particular tunnel, well, that's going to require to a certain degree, a Stonecunning check. When you do that, you can actually just quickly select double proficiency for your history check here, make your roll, and then return it to being just proficient. That's all you really have to do. So there's really no linkable option here to the abilities tab. So before we're actually done, there's another thing that the wizard didn't do for us, and that was actually create spellcasting slots. And at first level, you have the ability to cast 2 first level spells. So what you want to do is on your actions page, go to your level 1 spellcasting slot here and make sure you just select it and hit 2. And that will set up 2 spellcasting slots, and you want to make sure that you have your spell prepared. That way, when you go to the Actions tab, your spell is still there. That's the reason why it was disappearing before. And you now have 2 spell slots that are essentially available for use. So that's Actions and Combat. There we go. So now we can see that we have 2 slots that are available. And you can see that we have our resistances here. So whenever you get into the combat tracker, the first thing that you're going to want to do is hit that. And what that does is that puts the resistance to poison, provided I spelled it right. Sigh. Poison. There we go. So I'm going to apply that effect. Now that will positively work. And then we can just simply make use of this effect whenever there is a poison saving throw required. And that way, it's ready for use in the event that you do get poisoned. You don't have to worry about turning it on. It will never go away until you're removed from the combat tracker. That is everything for level 1. Now, we want to go through and make sure that we actually have the number of spells that we know that we can, meaning that by default, you get to choose 1 Cure Light Wound spell. But I believe you have the ability to know all of the spells, if you will, when it comes to the clerical capability. So, where is it here? Where's spellcasting? That's what I'm looking for. Spellcasting. There we go. Okay. You prepare a list of clerical spells that are available for you to cast, choosing from the clerical spell list. When you do so, choose a number of clerical spells equal to your wisdom modifier plus your clerical level. So that was not taken into account when we actually went through and created our spells, or selected our spells, because we actually do have the ability to know 5 spells. Alright, so I get to choose 4 more. So I'm going to click on clerical spells here, go to level 1, and I believe these are actually already, yeah, these are already reduced to those that are within your domain. Okay, so I'm going to go with Guiding Bolt. I don't believe that is, of course, no, that is not War Domain, so I'm going to minimize that, drop Guiding Bolt. That should have added that. Yep. Healing Word, so that's, what, 3? Bless. 4. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4. I need one more. Purify food and drink. Okay. There we go. But you only have the ability to cast 2 of them. So you actually get to know all of these. In the sense of this is what you can prepare. With a Wisdom 16, boost fix spells. First level or 2 or second level. Okay. If you are a 3rd level cleric, you have first and 2 second level spell slots with a Wisdom 16. Your list of prepared spells can include 6 spells of 1st or 2nd level. So you would have a combined total of, say, 3 first level and 3 second level, or 2 first level and 4 second level. So you want to make sure that you go through and read this, just to make sure everything is clear for you. So with that in mind, we're actually ready to take this character and begin the process of leveling him up. We don't have to choose a class specialization because we've already done that. Unlike other classes which choose it at later levels, level 2s, level 3 in some cases, the cleric selects it right off the start. And the reason for that is because of the fact that the cleric has to know their divinity that they're praying to before they're actually a cleric. It's kind of like a chicken and the egg problem. In this case, we chose the life domain, which means we actually technically have a cleric of the life domain. So to reflect that, I've renamed this particular character. I'm not sure whether I will go through the other domains because I'm already an hour into recording level 1 for this particular character. I don't know if I want to do that again for the other levels, so I'm going to use this primarily as the basic example for clerics. So, let's begin the process of leveling this character up. I'm going to simply left-click on this dragon icon here, hold that mouse button down, and drop it on top of the cleric here. Boom. So I've now acquired the additional hit points that I'm going to gain. I rolled... Aha! It does apply Dwarven Toughness automatically. So we don't have to worry about adding that. So it's already taken that into account with our total hit point domain, which means we kind of rolled bad. No, actually, it looks like we rolled okay. We rolled an 8. Yeah, we're adding 8 hit points. There we go. Okay. What else have we got here? Nothing else here changes. We now gain our Channel Divinity capability and a Divine Domain feature. So I'm going to pop open the Life Domain. Scroll this back up so that we can see things. We will now have 3 first level slots. So let's make sure that that is actually the case. Yes, it has automatically modified it. So what did we get for abilities? Well, we've gained Channel Divinity. And I believe we have gained... So we've gained Preserve Life. Okay. First, 1 per rest. All right. Channel Divinity, Divine Domain feature. Do we get Blessed Healer? No, that's at later dates. So level 2 is when we gain this one. So Preserve Life. That is what we have acquired. Starting at level 2, you can use your Channel Divinity to heal badly injured. Action. As an action, you represent your holy symbol, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, this is going to be a cleric capability. Let's expand that out, reduce that, and drop that into place. Now, that's going to show up under powers, but we need that under clerical. Or we could put it under life domain, because it is technically a life domain. Grouping, if you will. It does give us the ability to already do this. So it's already set up our healing capability. So that part is done. This one, however, is a bit trickier. At second level, you gain the ability to channel divine energy directly from your deity, using that energy to fuel magical effects. You start with 2 such effects, Turn Undead and an effect determined by your domain. So we have already acquired our second effect. That means we need to add the ability to Turn Undead. So, as an action, you present your holy symbol and speak the prayer, turning undead. Each undead that can see or hear you within 30 feet must make a wisdom saving throw. Okay. So let's drop this into place, and this would be clerical. So that is our cleric spell. And I'm just going to update this to say turn undead. There. Now, it has already created the turn effect for us. So they're going to be rolling a saving throw. And I believe that, yep, it updates once you've actually selected this. And if they are turned, you will apply this particular effect to them. So there is a restriction to how often we can use Channel Divinity. And if you look here, it says 1 per rest. What that means is that we need to make sure that we change under preparation our uses per day to 1, and it's per rest. So that means it's going to be both a short or a long rest. If you're confused about how frequently that actually occurs, I do believe it's here in the description. At beginning 6 level, you stay twice per day. Yeah. So some channels saving throw, short rest. Here you go. You must then finish a short or long rest before you can use it again. Okay, so that is done. We don't really have to do anything else, or do we? We don't need to choose any additional cantrips. And what is our spellcasting restriction here? So let's go down to spellcasting. And just move this over a little bit. So, you prepare a list of spells available to you for you to cast, choosing from the clerical spell list. When you do wisdom modifier plus your clerical level to a minimum of 1 spell. So, we could technically choose an additional level 1 spell. That's the level of spells that we can cast right now. So let's minimize that down. We already have 5, but at this point we now have the ability to choose 6. Not 6 new ones, just a total of 6 spells. So let's click on clerical. We want level 1. So create or destroy water. That'll work. And what this should do is it should throw it into this, and we can prepare that. So we are now ready. Okay, so I'm actually going to keep this spellcasting window open, just in the background there. And that is level 2. So we can now move on to level 3. I'm just going to bring this back up. So at level 3, that's when we're going to gain our first second level spell. And we will gain an additional level 1 spell slot. Okay. We aren't going to gain anything else past that point. So I'm just going to drag level 3 into there. Now, if you recall, we can learn 4 plus our level in spells. I already have 6 selected. I can now learn 7. But I have a choice at this point of making it a level 2 spell. So what I'm going to do is minimize everything and just expand out the level 2 spells here. I'm also going to minimize that so that when I drop this in, it goes into the right location. Prayer of Healing. I like that spell. And that spell is also going to acquire a bit of a bonus. If you recall, our life domain, or Disciple of Life ability, gives us the ability to add 2 plus the spell's level. Well, that means we can add an additional 4 hit points here. And I'm just going to make this change like that. Okay, so that takes care of that. We also need to make sure that we prepare that spell. Where did it go? That should be a level 2 spell. Where have you gone? I am... There it is, okay. Why are you doing that? There should be a description here. I'm not wrong, right? Delete. Open you up. Minimize cantrips. So this is still in early access, so there might still be a few bugs when it comes to dropping things into place. So I am pretty certain I just added you. There we go. All right, so I'm going to modify this again, add that 4. I can just do that here too. Okay. That is level 3. Level 4 is going to give us our next cantrip and our first ability score improvement. So I'm going to switch to the main page, drag and drop that so that we're now level 4. Expand out the cantrips. Actually, no, I'm going to keep that minimized. Minimize everything here. Really? Okay. I don't even have anything special enabled here. I'm going to choose Spare the Dying. And that should add it to... There's something here. Wow. There we go. Okay. I am confused. No, it didn't drop anywhere else, did it? No, it didn't. Okay. So Spare the Dying is in the cantrips grouping. Did it go anywhere else? No. Okay. Good. So that takes care of our cantrip. Now, the ability score improvement is a point that I make every video because it needs a little bit of clarification. And what I mean by that is as follows. With your ability score improvement, you get to choose one ability and increase it by 2 points, or you get to choose 2 abilities and increase each one by 1 point. There is a third option, but I'll get to that in a second. So let's use an example of the first 2, for example. Let's say that I want to increase my Constitution from 17 to 19. That would be one option that I have available to me. I could also choose my Wisdom and take that right up to 20. Yes, you can. You can go up to 20. Another option that I can choose here is actually to increase both my Constitution and my Wisdom by 1 point each. So I can take my Constitution to an 18 and my Wisdom to a 19. There's a catch, though. You cannot increase an ability past 20 through this method. You can have a magical item that increases it past 20, and you can increase a stat that is already being magically modified past 20, up to the value of 20. What I mean by that is if I had a ring that increased my wisdom skill to 21, so let's say it's a plus 3 ring. Technically, the wisdom is already at a level 20 or higher ability score. Well, I can actually still modify that using my ability score improvement value and add 2 points to it because the base value is 18. If I take that ring off, it drops back to an 18. I can then increase my ability score to a 20 and put that ring back on to give me a total of 23 for my wisdom. That is still legal to do. Same thing with my Constitution. If I had that plus 3 ring that modified it to 20, and so it took it from 17 to 20, I can still increase my Constitution up to a total of 3 additional points over the course of the additional ability score improvements to bring that up to 20 before I couldn't increase that value any further. That is how that works. There is, however, a third option, and that is to take a feat. This third option, however, is only going to be available if the Dungeon Master for your campaign permits feats. That is something that you'll want to make sure that you talk over with your Dungeon Master. For this example, I am going to intentionally increase my Constitution by 2 points. And the reason I'm doing that is I know it's going to modify the value of my Constitution bonus. So let's modify this to a 19. Now you'll see here that it went from a +3 to a +4. Well, what does that actually mean? It means that I am now missing hit points as a character. There's a difference of +1 here times your clerical level. So I need to add 4 hit points to this total, which is 42. If I was level 12 before I modified my Constitution to the point where, it increased the bonus here, then I would take that bonus change, in this case it would be +1, and multiply by 12 and add that value to this particular total hit point. That is how modifying or adding your ability score improvement adjustment to your Constitution works. The other thing that we have to do is ensure that we add another spell. So I'm going back to clerical levels or clerical spells here. I'm going to go to level 2 because I do have the option to choose a level 2 spell. I am going to choose Old Person. So minimize that. Drop that into place. And why did that not? Okay, let's delete that again. Drag and drop. There we go. So now I have all of the items that I need there. Okay, that is level 4. At level 5, we're going to gain the ability to destroy undead. And that's for any undead that is a challenge rating of 1/2 or lower, just so that it's clear there. So I'm going to drag and drop to level 5. I've got my hit point increase here. I have no additional cantrips that I need to learn, but I do gain my first proficiency bonus increase. That did not add my proficiency bonus here, so point in mind here is that you'll want to make sure that you choose your 2 saving throws here for wisdom and charisma. So wisdom is here, and that is proficient, and charisma is here, that is proficient, because we're not getting the appropriate bonuses there. I just noticed that only because I was looking for the proficiency bonus. So at level 1, you want to make sure that you choose this, otherwise you're not going to be proficient in the 2 saving throws you're supposed to be proficient in. So that is something else that the wizard did not do. Now, let's take a look at that Destroy Undead capability. So, what this ability does, starting at level 5, when an undead fails its saving throw against your Turn Undead feature, the creature is instantly destroyed if its challenge rating is at or below a certain threshold, as shown in the Destroy Undead table. So at 5th level, anything that is a challenge rating of 1/2 or lower is instantly destroyed. I honestly don't know if that is automatic or not. Let's test that. Let me set things up and then we'll have a look. So, I have set up 5 skeletons here. I'm going to target all of them. So let's, oops, missed the first one. All right, so I now have them all targeted. I am then going to go to my Actions tab, go to my Clerical capabilities, and execute the required saving throw for those skeletons. You'll see that it will roll a die for each one. So, failure, failure, failure. 1 succeeded, the rest failed. What that means is that I now need to execute to destroy undead. It didn't automatically do that because they're all healthy. They're not automatically dead. But let's try the turn effect. they are all simply turned, so it does not automatically execute the Destroy Undead capability. So let's see if it's an ability we can add to our system. So let me move that, pop that open, and move that here. Drag that down, expand the window, shrink it. This is clerical. It does not look like it adds that to the effect. So let me think for a few minutes and I'll be right back. So after a bit of research and some additional testing, I have been unable to find a way to execute the undead that failed this particular check instantly. The only way to really do this for now is to make the Dungeon Master aware of the Destroy Undead capability. So that would mean dragging and dropping your Destroy Undead thing into the chat box and clicking it to show that you're using it. That way he can identify who failed the actual test when it comes to the challenge rating of that particular undead creature, and determine anybody who is turned actually should be destroyed, as opposed to just flat out turned. So that is something that will have to happen through role-playing and through communication between the player executing the Destroy Undead turn effect when they execute Channel Divinity Turn Undead. So there is no way to do it. But what I do recommend doing is dropping this into your Cleric group on your actions page so that it's there to remind you that when you cast Channel Divinity that there is a Turn on or Destroy Undead capability, and then just use the chat window to communicate to the Dungeon Master, hey, I'm using this. When I cast Channel Divinity, Turn Undead, and he or she will be able to look up to see the challenge rating of the creatures that got turned and destroy the ones that should be dead instead. So with that, let's do a bit of cleanup here and get ready for the next level. Now, I actually do need to add a spell. We have our first 3rd level spell here. So I'm going to expand this or reduce this and look for a good 3rd level spell. So let's see here. Mass Healing Word. That'll work. Now, Mass Healing Word is also one of the life domain spells, if I'm not mistaken. Nope, actually this is just Cleric. I should actually double check to make sure that Prayer of Healing was life domain. No, actually that is just a Cleric as well. Ah, no, it does. It's a healing capability. So what I'm looking at here at healing spells. So there's no limitation to what healing spell it is. So this does still apply. Now, this is a level 3. So if you look at your Disciple of Life, it's +2 plus the spell's level. That means we're adding +5 to this. So all we have to do is add a 5 here, and that will take care of that. So I believe that covers everything for level 5. All right, at level 6, we are going to get an increase in the number of uses of Channel Divinity. We're going to gain a new Divine Domain feature. We do not gain any additional cantrips. We do not gain any additional proficiency bonuses, but we will gain another spell. Let's drop that into place, and let's modify our Channel Divinity. So we're now going to see 2 uses per day as opposed to 1. Or, sorry, per rest as opposed to 1. Now, at level 6, we gain Blessed Healer. And that should now be in our... I did apply the level, right? Yeah. 1, 2. I have no idea why Blessed Healer is not there. Yeah, it didn't add Blessed Healer. I'm wondering if I'm wondering if the wizard didn't properly link in the life domain specialization. Because that should have dropped. It did work for Disciple of Life, but that's a level 1 spell. Or feature, rather. We'll see if it does it again at Divine Strike. So at level 6, with Blessed Healer, we're gaining the ability to add 2 plus the spell's level again. As a Dungeon Master, I would rule that this is in conjunction with the previous one, which was Disciple of Life. So, that now means that all of our level 1 or higher healing spells, so Cure Wounds, would now gain an additional... Oops, I didn't want to do that. So I'm going to actually add the 3 here for this and get rid of this, just to clear that up. But I would say this is now 6, so I would say it's doubling that. Any other healing spells? Healing Word would get... Apparently I didn't add that, so this would be also 6. And under level 2, I don't think we... Yep, Prayer of Healing gains, so this is now going to be 8. So essentially we're doubling the amount of hit points that we'll be able to heal because of this. That's the way that I would read that. In addition, we're going to gain an additional spell. I've already got Mass Healing Word. Water Walk. Revivify. Touch creatures died within the last minute. The creature returns life with 1 hit point. So Revivify. I will definitely take that. And that'll be Prepare. Okay. And anything else at level 6? We already made the modification. To the Cleric. Yes, 2. Okay, so that is everything we have to do for level 6. That now sets us up for level 7, which is just going to be a straight increase. So all we're going to do is gain a spell. And what about an actual spell slot? So spell, yes, we gain our first 4th level spell. All right, drop level 7 into place. And go down to actions. I'm going to go to level 4 spells. And I'm going to minimize those so that I can actually properly drag this into place. Go with freedom of movement. And add that to the prepared list. And that's it. That's level 7. Level 8 sees a couple of things. One, we gain our next ability score improvement. We also gain a new domain feature, as well as we can destroy Undead from challenge rating level 1 or lower. So, is Divine Strike the next skill we get? Yes. Did that add? It did not. So, I have a feeling the new wizard does not yet add class specializations from the get-go to the character sheet properly. So that may be a problem. Yay. Okay. So at level 8, you gain the ability to infuse your weapon strikes with divine energy. Once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can cause the attack to deal an extra d8 radiant damage to the target. When you reach 14th level, the extra damage increases to 2d8. So we'll have to keep that in mind. So this is going to be a new addition. It'll drop up here, and this is a life domain, so we called it life domain. Okay, so that should drop under here, yes. And it's already set up for us, so we don't need to worry about that. Excellent. We don't need to deal with the destroy undead part because all we have to do is be sure that we recognize challenge rating 1 or lower. Now, our ability score improvement. So I'm going to show you the second ability score improvement method, and that is to increase my constitution by 1 point. That'll bring it up to 20, which will introduce another +1 bonus change here that we have to take into account. And I will bring the wisdom up to a 19. So, in relation to our change in our hit points here, we had a +1 increase here. Times 7 means that we take this to 79 hit points, because we add 7 hit points. And that is how that part works. Anything else for level 7? No. We've already done the spell. Okay, so we're good there. So I actually have to make a correction. I had not yet dropped level 8 into place, so I need to add 1 more hit point to this. So that's 91. And because of the adjustment that I needed to make there. So level 9 is just going to be a proficiency bonus increase and a spell gain. So let's drop this into place first. All right, grab a spell. So I'm going to expand that out to give me a little bit more room, and then shrink those. Now, level 9 gives us a 5th level spell. Interesting. So, minimize that, expand that. Mass Cure Wounds. Interesting. Do you not have an action? You do. Okay. Delete that. There we go. All right, so this is, there we go. All right, so this is a level 5 spell, which means we're adding 2 plus 5, which is 7 times 2 because Life Domain and Blessed Heals. So that makes it 14 is the bonus. And that sets everything up for level 9. Level 10 is going to give us Divine Intervention. All right, so let's drop level 10 into place. Abilities, let's take a look at Divine Intervention. So Divine Intervention is a nice little capability, but it does have a couple of limitations. This is a clerical spell. It is not, or sorry, a clerical feature, not a life domain feature, if you will. I'm going to drop that into place, and this will be Cleric. And that is now 2. Oh, right. So, Divine Intervention. Now, Divine Intervention has a couple of things associated with it. There's going to be a percentile die that is rolled. I don't know if we can represent that here, but I'll check. If the roll that comes up is equal to or lower than your clerical level, so in this case it would be 10, so you'd have a 10% chance of it working, your deity intervenes. The DM gets to choose what that intervention is, and there are 2 things that come into play. If your if your deity has intervened, you cannot use this feature again for 7 days. I get the feeling they'd get a little bit irritated. If, however, they did not, you can try again the next day or after you've had a long rest. So, there is no way to represent a duration longer than a day outside of it being a one-time thing. So, I'm going to only worry about taking into account the long rest portion, which is what this does. If you use it and succeed, then this will probably temporarily have to be removed from your character sheet, or you start tracking it as to how many days are left. And I would recommend putting like 7 days left before use again kind of thing. The Dungeon Master will also have to do the same thing. But there will have to be communication between yourself and the Dungeon Master in reference to that. Now, the percentile die, I do not believe we can add that as an appropriate effect. Because you're not casting it. Ugh. Hang on. Where did the action go? Really? Cleric pages can, or anybody that has a large number of spells, their sheets can get a little bit hard to manage. Nope. Okay, it's not an effect I wanted. It is possibly a cast. No. Okay. So this one is going to have to be simply that you pick up a percentile die. And you can do that by right-clicking on your D10, selecting percentile die. Actually, let me check one thing. Cast damage and heal damage. Type. Nope. Okay. That isn't going to work. Delete that. Nope. So literally you're just going to have to right-click percentile die and roll it. So 44. In this case, my deity did not intervene. Okay, anything else at level 10? Level 10, we gain our 5th cantrip. So, let's go to cantrips. And what do we already have for cantrips? Guidance, resistance. Yeah, let's go with, light. Okay. And that should be it outside of adding another spell. So let's go to 5th level spell. Anything else that we can use? Flame Strike would be a good one. And it looks like it added it fine. Okay, good. Level 11, we are going to now be able to destroy Undead of challenge rating 2 or lower. Well, let's drop that into place. And all this is going to be is a spell addition. So I'm actually going to go back and add a level 4 spell because I think I only added one. Yep. Freedom of movement. Death Ward. That would be useful. And both of those need to be prepared. So I need to add preparations for the level 5 ones. All right, and the destroy undead part, again, that's going to be you must notify the dungeon master that you can now destroy anything challenge rating 2 or lower if they fail their saving throw on the turn undead process. Level 12 is going to require an ability score improvement to happen plus a spell. So let's deal with the spell first. And how many spells do I have at 3? So let's see, is there anything at 3 I could use? Daylight can do some damage. No, okay. Let's use it though. It's probably it can be useful for. Where did that go? What level was that? That was level 3. You are there. Hang on. There we go. Preparation. Boom. Okay. Now, the ability score improvement, I've already shown you a case of increasing 1 stat by 2, 2 stats by 1. I'm going to choose a feat in this particular case. Let's have a look here. And feats are available from this feats button here. And what does healer give us? You are an able physician, allowing you to mend wounds quickly and get your allies back in the fight. You gain the following benefits. When you use a healer's kit to stabilize a dying creature, that creature also gains 1 hit point. As an action, you can spend 1 use of a healer's kit to tend to a creature and restore 1d6 plus 4 hit points to it, plus additional hit points, blah, 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 blah. Okay. That actually sounds highly useful. So, here's the problem. There we go. Oops, I don't want to do that there. I want that here. I'm going to drop you to there. Now, healer does have a feat capability. So let's see if it's going to create one for us. So powers, it does. Nice. All right, so this is a feat. Okay, so that takes care of the abilities of feat. So it's already set up. Nothing else we have to do. And we've already done the spell. That means we can move on to level 13. So I'm going to drag and drop. 13 gives us the ability to cast level 7th spells. So technically I need a level 6 and a level 7th. But I've already chosen another level, so I don't necessarily need that. So let's see if there's a level 6 spell here I could use, or if I can go straight to a level 7. So Resurrection could be highly useful. Oops. And level 6, find the path, heal. Let's go with heal. Alright, so you're healing 70 hit points right off the get-go. That is a bonus that is already there, so I don't want to adjust that to take into account our extra abilities. This is a level 6 spell, which means we now have 2 plus 6 equals 8 times 2 is 16. So we are able to heal 86 hit points with this one spell. I love that. Okay. What else at level 13? Nothing. Okay, so that's level 13. Level 14 is going to see our undead destroying undead phase increase to a challenge rating of 3. We are not gaining another level 7 spell slot or anything like that, so I am going to use this opportunity to take a level 7 spell, which will be Regenerate. Or, sorry, Resurrection. Maybe Regenerate. You touch a creature, healing ability. Creature gains 48 plus 15 hit points for the duration of the spell. The target regains 1 hit point at the start of each of its turns. Target, severed body member, blah, blah, blah. If any are restored after 2 minutes. Yeah, I'll take Regenerate. Now, it could be argued that this spell would allow you to regain the additional bonus points here. So in this case, it's 2 plus 7, which is 9, times 2, 18 as the bonus. So you're gaining plus 33 hit points right off the get-go. This, however, does not increase in its bonus, in my opinion. Yeah, that would be the point that I would argue there. So, what else do we gain at level 14? We have not gained any new abilities. Okay, so that is level 14. Oh, no, wait, I have to choose a level 7 spell again, which I've already done. So that's why I chose Regenerate. Okay, we're good. So in addition to our abilities we gained at level 14, which is the increase in the Destroy Undead in the spell, we have to modify Divine Strike, which is for our life domain, to 2d8 damage. So if you recall, it goes through and modifies. At level 14, you get 2d8 radiant damage as opposed to just 1. Level 15 is going to put us in line for gaining our first level 8 spell. So let's drop this into place. Go down to here. And let's see, what do we got at level 8? Holy Aura. Divine Light, why does that mean? Okay. That is useful. Is not a healing spell, but you'll see that it gains all of these effects. Extra effect on Fiend, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so the extra effect may be something that you have to deal with. It is a note here. In addition, when a Fiend or an Undead hits an affected creature with a melee attack, the aura flashes a brilliant light. The attacker must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or be blinded until the spell ends. It might be possible to modify that to actually have an if condition that essentially states if Fiend, Undead. But I don't think you can trigger a roll now that I think about that. So, thinking. I don't know why they just didn't add another check here to be able to set it up for an attack. So what I'm referring to is doing something like this. Add a cast. And what did that say? In addition, Fiend hits an effect. Hits an affected creature with a melee attack. The aurora flashes a bright light. The attacker must succeed on con save. So, edit that. Nope, not an attack. It is a con save. Doesn't say, so let's just go that. That's a rather, holy crap, painful save. And if they do, then add a new effect. And that will be blindness. Blinded. On target until the spell ends. How long does a spell end? One action self, 1 minute. So, okay, so 1 minute, that would be 10 rounds. Next action, once per modifier, never. Yeah, okay, so it'll last for 10 rounds. Okay, or until the concentration check is done. So the effect will have to go away if you fail your concentration check. So that's how you can set that up to make that useful. Excuse me, a little bit more playable. All right. What else here? We have level 15. Okay, we're done. At level 16, we gain our next ability score improvement. I've already dropped the level into place. So, I cannot increase wisdom if I decide to go with the +2 change. If I decide to increase one stat by +1, I can choose another stat by +1 as well. So I'm going to actually choose these two, take this up to a 20, and bring this up to a 16. Okay, ability score improvement, level 16 also. Another level 8 spell that we can choose if we wanted to. The anti-magic field. Let's go with Earthquake, that's always fun. Okay, Earthquake. And that deals with everything for level 16. So, we are now in line for level 17, where we are going to gain our last increase in Destroy Undead. We are gaining our last Divine Domain feature. We are gaining our last point in our Proficiency bonus, and we are gaining an additional spell slot, I believe. Oops, let's spin that down. I believe we are now able to cast level 9 spells. Yes. Okay, so let's deal with the spell first. So, what do we got for... Well, you know which one I'm going to go for if you haven't figured it out by now. Holy crap, that's a lot of damage for Earthquake. Ugh. Mass heal is a little bit more. You restore up to 7 hit points divided, so there should be something here. So, delete. There. Really? Is there no feature? Okay, now it's just not even working. Wow, is there no actual effect? Preparation, combat, action. So let's go to preparation, which I haven't been preparing these things. That's the one thing about a cleric is that they can prepare all of these spells, but they're still restricted on the casting. Yeah, there is no... Crap. Alright, so why? You restore up to 7 hit points divided as you choose among any number. Ha! That would be why. Also cured of all diseases and any effect making them blinded or deafened. This has no effect on undead or on constructs. Okay, so... This one you're essentially going to have to math it out on your own. So... You could essentially choose one creature for 700 hit points, 2 creatures for 350. So you might want to go and do that. Go through and set up a set of stats. So let's say heal here. You could do the addition of... Oops, click that. Oh, really? You're going to do this to me? There we go. Let's remove this. 100 hit points would allow you to heal 7 people by 100 hit points. And break it down to a combination that you feel you might use on a regular basis. That way you don't have to worry about mathing it out. So you can choose to heal 1 person by 700 hit points. So add an action, add a heal, change that to this, and it's doing that again. 700. That way you can remind yourself how many hit points you can heal, and then just set these up so that it's available for use. And then when you actually go to your actions tab, you can actually target everybody that you want to do and say, I want to heal 100 hit points, and then vary it down so that you can actually heal additional hit points to those that are needed, because you can do up to 700. If you've got 8 people that are, let's say 8 people in your party, including yourself, 7 others are hurt, you're not, and they're all hurt by less than 100 hit points, you can just select all 7, use the 100 here, and heal 100 hit points. You don't even have to worry about it. And apparently I just healed all those skeletons. No, I didn't, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work on undead. Alright, so that is that capability for mass heal. So that is that spell. In addition, at level 17, we gained Supreme Healing. Now, I don't believe, no, it did not. So that confirms that nothing's properly linked here. But what this means is that all of our healing spells that currently require a roll in order to actually effectively execute those heals no longer requires that roll. So, for example, Cure Light Wounds here. I currently roll a 1d8 plus 11. Well, that now changes. We no longer actually roll the dice, we just simply do the maximum amount of hit points. So, as you can see here, use the highest number possible for each die. So 1d8, that means it's 8 plus 11. So all we do is add an 8 to this and delete the die. Actually, this is going to delete the whole thing. So delete clear dice. There we go. So that's going to clear the die. So that definitely has worked. So that is our bonus there. That's what we're going to heal for. Let's see, healing word will have to be adjusted. So that is now a 4 plus 11. So I just add this to a 10 and clear the die. And now it's a 15, which is correct. Prayer of Healing, 2d8, which means 16 plus 13. So if I add 16 to 8, that's 24. And clear dice, that gives us the 29. Is there any other? Nope, okay. Level 3, we have Mass Healing, which is 1d4 plus 15. So let's just take this to a 14. Clear the dice. No healing there. Okay, 3d8. 3d8 is 24 plus 19. So if I add 24 to this, that is 34, 38. And then if I clear the dice, we're now doing 43 hit points of healing. Anyone else? Nope. Level 6, Mass Heal. We're already not doing dice rolls. In relation to this, we're doing 4d8. That means we can heal up to 32 hit points there. So 32 plus 15 is 45, 47. Provided my math is correct, we just clear the dice. We're now doing 65 hit points of healing. And I don't believe there's any other healing spells here that roll. Yeah, and this is this one. That is it. That's what we do in relation to Supreme Healing. So you don't need to do anything else. Level 18, we get an increase in our Channel Divinity capabilities. So let's drag this on here so I don't forget again. Go down to Actions, go up to Cleric, which is here, and we now can use that 3 times before rest. We also gain an additional spell that we can learn, because it's 18 plus 4, which means we can know 22 spells total. Now, that's 22 spells between level 1 through to level 9, so it comes down to how you want to actually go through and set things up. I'm going to, as this character is intentionally being set up as a healing character, yeah, I'm going to drag Resurrection into place. I suspect this is also dead for no longer than 200 years. Interesting. Okay. Is there any action? No, there isn't. Okay. So that is that. And I've already fixed up Channel Divinity, so that takes care of that. And we've already got those. All right. So, level 19. That gives us our last ability score improvement. Drop that into place. And in this case, I am going to increase the dexterity up by 2 points. Or, sorry, strength up by 2 points. That's just simply because I want to be able to do a little bit more damage when I connect with the melee weapon, if I'm still happen to be using melee weapons. Yeah, so it's now a plus 4 to its damage. We also gain an additional spell, because we're now at 19 plus 4, which is 23 spells total. And I'm going to minimize that, maximize that, minimize that. Okay. Firestorm. That was a level 7, wasn't it? Firestorm, yes it is. And it doesn't seem to have any of its abilities. There we go, that's better. Okay, so that is that. And that puts us in line for level 20. At level 20, we get our last divine intervention improvement, if you will. So we'll take a look at that in a second. I'm going to drop this into place, and then I'm going to go to abilities, divine intervention, and at level 20, our call for intervention automatically succeeds, no roll. What that does mean is because it has succeeded, you now have to wait 7 days. So the rest period option here technically goes away. But seeing as we don't need to modify it, there really isn't any need to. The last thing we do is we get to choose a spell. And did I choose Resurrection for level 7? No, Regenerate and Firestorm. So I'm going to drop Resurrection into there. And that should be... Yep, okay, so everything there's fine. Just has to be prepared for both of those. And there. Everything is ready. So that is how you go through the process of leveling up a Cleric of the Life Domain. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. I wish to thank you for taking the time to watch this particular video. I hope you found it informative and useful to familiarizing yourself with Fantasy Grounds in general, and that you had fun in the process. If you found the video useful and you liked the content of the particular video, go ahead and click that like button to let me know. And if you have any questions specific to the topic covered by this particular video, or just have some comments in general, please feel free to post something in the comments section, and I will do my best to respond to any questions that are asked. Additionally, I do release content quite regularly, and it's generally specific to Fantasy Grounds or 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons at this time. So if you'd like to be notified when new videos come out, go ahead and subscribe and click the notification bell to ensure that notification is sent to you when I release a new video.